All right. All right. You click this video because you may not feel like a real man, and that may feel a little uncomfortable, but let's be real. There are some mistakes that men are making, and in this video, Gavin and I are going to break down to the core why we don't feel like real men and what we can do to get over that and where we can go for support on that journey. Because let's be real, guys, it feels lonely being a guy. Now, who I have with me today is Gavin Lance Topp. You may recognize him if you are a boxing fan, but Gavin Lance Topp is a former professional boxer who began his journey with 19 amateur fights, drawn to the sport for its physical and mental challenges. He went on to win and defend the Australian Junior Middleweight Title, and after a comeback in 2005, fought 5 international opponents before entering a World Title Eliminator bout in Germany. At his peak, he was ranked 12th in the world and was inducted into the Queensland Boxing Hall of Fame in 2022. He later founded the Fight Like a Pro Rite of Passage program, a transformational experience designed to help men rise to their full potential as husbands, fathers, and leaders. After leading over 3,000 men through the program, Gavin authored A Rite of Passage, which has sold thousands of copies worldwide. This journey led to the creation of the Man Alive Experience, an online mentorship platform connecting with men across the globe. Gavin, this is incredible work, brother.
Man, thank you. And thank you for having me here and being in front of your audience, man. You're a legend, mate. I love you, what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Man, I like to dive into the deep end, right? Because I feel like sometimes we play on the surface level, and that talks to what we're about to get into, right? Why we don't feel real as men or women, right? But we're specifically talking to men right now. So I just want to ask you this because I need to know for myself. And I know there's a man out there that's asking this, like, guys, just get to the meat. Do you ever feel like you're just going through the motions, like where everything seems fine on the surface, but you're really broken on the inside? Or is that just me?
Well, the amount of men that I've come across, speak with over the years, I think it's in some cases you say, oh, that's the state of 90% of men. You know, sadly, you know.
Yeah. And you mentioned to me before we had started speaking this Be a Better Man challenge, and just the name spoke to me immediately. It's like, be a better man. I want to be a better man. I'm sure a lot of men want to be a better man, especially those of us that didn't have a father figure, right?
Yeah.
And the father figures we had didn't lead us in the right direction. They told us that the wrong things were what made us a man. You know, how many women we can get, how much money we can make, you know, all the wrong vanity metrics that deplete your soul, right? And then we have to unlearn that. And there's no men really standing up being men that are teaching us the right way, right? Not like alpha male, just like what it means to be a real man. So I'm curious, right? Because you're obviously successful at this. What does being a better man mean to you personally?
Yeah. Well, the whole idea of really finding that authentic identity, because it always comes that this is a big problem I've seen for many years, is that we're looking at other men and endeavoring to be that guy.
Yeah.
That's another illusion. It's another you know, what is it? The truth with a twist is a lie. So
right.
It's like have the courage to be yourself. Be yourself. Everyone else is taken. So that's kind of the start of the masculine journey of just saying, this is me. This is me. This is what I've got to work with. And it is enough. It is more than enough. You know,
so
God
good.
didn't make any accidents, man.
Amen. That is so good, man. This is
so
me.
but that's just the start.
Yeah.
There is a process. There is a rite of passage. And the trouble, what I've witnessed is it's the blind leading the blind. And I was just so fortunate to have some great men in my life. I mean, my dad was amazing. You know, my dad still is amazing. But, you know, he had stuff, you know, and I look at his father. I look at my mum's father, you know, like on that side, there's a lot of alcoholism and gambling and womanizing and that behavior. And then the other side, it was like my grandfather would ask to speak, and whatever he said, my grandmother would correct him. So it was like he was just, I had both extremes, you know.
Wow.
I'm left in the middle. I know I could go either way. You know?
You had a choice. You had contrast.
Well, I had a fight going on. Go this way, I don't want to go that way. I go that way, I don't want to go that way. So I was fortunate enough to actually, you know, I had a great dad, but, you know, as I said, he had his issues and whatever, but he got me into sport. You know, he got me into horses, and I become very good at that. Then he got me into football. I got good at that. Got me into boxing. I got you know, reasonably good at that. And then I kind of found alcohol. You know, and hit that point and just went. It was like pouring gasoline on the fire.
Yeah, always is, man. It's a slippery slope.
It is. But everything's, you know, everything works out for the best. I actually ended up in a drug and alcohol rehabilitation program, you know, and I did my best to try and get myself right. You know, I remember one point when I was fighting as a teenager in the boxing, and I remember thinking it was almost like I had two groups of friends. I had people I trained with, and I had people that I drank with, and neither of them kind of knew each other, because if I was doing that, I didn't go there near those guys. If I was doing that, I never went near them. But I remember I ended up thinking to myself, I've just got to get back to the gym, because when I was at the gym, things were better. I've got to get away from these kind of mates. And I remember training a couple of nights, and my coach goes, if you train every night this week, I'll get you a fight on Friday night. And normally you'd have to do at least 3 or 4 months training. That's men that are already fighting, you know. And I was like a couple of days in, I thought, and my thinking was, at least if I fight, it'll keep me out of the pub, you know.
Wow.
And I remember fighting, and I won the fight. And he grabbed me before I kind of left and went out partying. And he goes, don't drink tonight. We'll do what you did last week. Train every day. I'll get you another fight next week. And I went, okay. I kind of on adrenaline high from it. All right, I'll do it. And long story short, I ended up fighting every week. I ended up having 8 fights in 7 weeks. I didn't know at the time, but it was like a round robin of the state that I lived in, and then around Australia, you know. And I ended up coming third in Australia, and I wasn't even fit, you know. But and this was a real, I think, a story that a lot of men will relate to. Is there was a couple of other coaches that were, you know, that knew me from a distance, and 3 of them said the same thing over a couple of weeks. They said, Gav, like, where have you been? You're back. It's great. But what's going on, mate? You got all this potential, but what's going on? And it's like 3 of them said to me in 3 weeks the same thing. It was like, I didn't know what was going on. I've got this strength in me. I just didn't know how to use it, you know?
Right. Man, I'm going to drop that comment below if that resonates. That is powerful, man. Like, there's so much power inside of us as men. And if it's not directed in the right way, we can do the wrong things. I can relate to that. As soon as you said alcohol, I'm like, yeah, I remember that slippery slope. And, you know, I've since deemed myself allergic to alcohol because it makes me break out in handcuffs. That's not an allergy I like. So if that's resonating with somebody that's watching right now, please comment below. We want to help empower men. I'm not with you, but I'm with you, if that makes sense. Like, this isn't my journey, but my goodness, if I don't get this to the world for them to see that there is a place where they can go and challenge themselves to be better men. Because like you said, that it's a trap. Looking left, looking right, trying to be like another man, but like every other man is taken. So what do you have to work with? Who are you? Right. And how is that bringing that to the world going to change the world? It's so powerful, Gavin. I love how, because the belief is that addiction is a disease, right? And really what the disease is, it's the same disease as sin, which is relationship. It's broken relationship. And when we are broken to the main relationship we're supposed to be connected to, we start falling into bad habits. So addiction is really just a habit of disconnecting from people, connecting to our ego, and doing things to please ourselves. But when we get out of that trap and we replace those habits, with good people, with good surroundings, that's when things start to change. Did you notice that too?
Well, there was a couple of things, because I remember getting sober, because I remember a man that I met in that place, and it was almost like, it felt like he just went bang and put his finger in my chest. And what he said was, he goes, "There's something in you that only you can fulfill. There's a mission. There's a purpose." And I knew there was. I didn't know exactly what it was, but I knew there was. There was times when I was growing up, and there was one time there, I remember I was going to put a rope around my neck and hang myself. And as I was about to jump off the bale of hay, it was like, boom, I woke up out of something. Like it was like, oh, I'm going to do this, and not that, but those kind of moments happen a few times throughout my teenage years. So, but I knew I was looked after. I knew there was something. I didn't know God. Like my grandmother took me to this Catholic church when she was, when I was younger, when she'd left to look after me and stuff. So I knew of God, but I just didn't. But I felt loved at those particular times. Now I can say, oh, that was obviously the Holy Spirit. Come on, at the time I didn't know what the heck,
Right.
But mate, what really happened was a couple of men grabbed me with that one that said, "There's more in you. There's a mission." And at that point, I wanted to be a fighter, but I kept playing up and drinking and couldn't get my, just couldn't get walk in a straight line. I was all over the place. And I'd done some pretty silly things at that point. So it was almost like my options were kind of out anyway.
Right.
And I was, and then, you can always, you think you hit rock bottom and you go, and then there's another, but that was as low as I wanted to go. So what happened was, and so I thought, I said to him, "Well, what have I got to do?" He goes, "Well, I'll see you. Don't drink between now and tomorrow, and I'll see you tomorrow." So I just basically started going to the meetings to help stay sober and clean. And then in between the meetings, I'd go to the gym and I'd just train. And meetings, train. And within 2 years, I started to fight on, like in Australia, on Fox Sports. And a couple of years later, like 4.5 years into it, I got to live my dream. I was the Australian champion. I started to be able to, I ended up buying one house and another house. I ended up having, like, all of a sudden I had 4 houses. I'm the Australian champion. I'm like, my wife and my, a couple of kids, and you've met Janae, and but you know what? It was very much self-will run riot, And there was one point where, man, God touched me. He come to me. Like there was one day where I was gonna, I was gonna punch a guy out because I thought he looked at me. I was in a car chase. I just brought this brand new red Ute, and I was in a car chase. I just brought another house, and I was just angry. And then my wife goes to me, "Hey." And at that point in my life, I had these really annoying Christians hanging around my wife. Oh, they were nice people, but geez, they were irritating. And they invited us to this Easter production. I remember going there, and realising I didn't even know what Easter was about. Like I knew it was about eggs, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember sitting at that. I remember walking into that church and I burst into tears. I thought, what the heck? What's going on with me? And I just thought, oh, I felt embarrassed.
All right.
I'm the Australian champion. I'm the tough guy, right? And I'm crying in this church. Like I was just almost embarrassed. So I sat down and tried, no one could see me. And then there was this Easter production happen. And then it's almost like God showed me the story of my life. All those times that he looked after me, that he saved me, that he kept me from disaster, There was there's so many times. There was one time I went traveling. I remember coming home, on ecstasy and all sorts of stuff. I remember looking at my plane ticket. Back in those days before phones, you had those bits of paper. Yeah. I remember realising I didn't know what the date was. And then I remember realising I didn't know what month it was. Wow. And then I realised I had to get some help, find out that, and I'd missed the plane by 3 weeks that I was going to catch. Whoa. But that's not the worst bit. The worst bit, I realised I was actually in the wrong country. So I mean, my life was unmanageable, to say the least.
Wow.
So boxing, in some respects, just it was something I could put my grunt into, and because those men who helped me started to show me all about these rite of passages, but it was missing God is what it was. That's the bottom line. And God knew, and he led me there, and then he just changed my life, And but I mean the thing is, there's so many men. Well, I've met so many men over the years that never get that opportunity for someone to say there's something in you. Let's find out what it is.
Yeah, that calling, like they see you before you see you and call you alive.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an experience right there. And
that's the way rite of passages work. I always talk, in one of my books, A Rite of Passage for the Modern Man, I talk about we need 3 men, 3 groups of men. We need to receive from somebody, a group, somebody who's already been there, show us the way. But the crucial part is the unconditional love. We need friends, we need mates, fellowship, men's on the same level for that camaraderie. But we've got to understand each other's mission so we can benefit each other. And then underneath, we're going to be helping the next group of men up. And that's kind of a healthy, well-balanced tribe community.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, most men are trying to just do it on their own, the lone wolf.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so painful.
Yeah.
So painful.
And it's so avoidable.
How do they avoid this, man?
Oh man! well, this is what the Become a Better Man 5-day challenge is about. Because the transformation happens. All of the light bulbs happen. Think, exactly like that. Oh, that happened to me. Oh, that's what you do. I've always known those things, And I mean, can I just say, because these are signs that I've seen over the years, and the so-called experts have told me, there's a lot of experts out there, and some are, of course, but there's nothing like real experience. There's no substitute for real experience and that comeback story. But, even because it's obvious to me, I deal with a lot of men between 40s, 50s, and 60s. That's kind of, where men have gone so hard, maybe in early stages, careers, building a family, they get to that point and kind of left, like, what else is there?
Right.
And these are really the telltale signs, and they reckon the number one thing that's tripping men up right now, men around 50, is they don't look after their health. They neglect having health checkups. Like, so simple. Book it in, get the yearly checkup,
Yeah.
And it might sound so simple, but I've actually, last year I had 2 of my uncles, both of them retired, one at 62 and one at 64. Within months of retirement, found out they had cancer. That could have been prevented just by like healthy lifestyle. regular checkup. Hey, man, your sugars are too high or too low, or your blood pressure, just maintenance. They look after their car more than they looked after themselves.
Yeah, and that awareness, just having the awareness, you don't even have to do anything about it. Just be aware. Like, there was a time I went to the doctor about 6-7 years ago, and they told me my A1Cs were high. So what I do, I stopped eating pizza and I started walking. But had I not done that checkup, I wouldn't have known my check engine light was on.
No. And I think a big problem is when middle-aged men they stop building muscle.
Yeah.
If you don't build muscle, particularly at our age, your body's not making any more testosterone. You might got to do something. So if you go for a few years and don't build muscle, man, it's coming down rapidly, and it's a lot harder to build it back up the older you get. So easier to stay fit than have to get fit again.
Yeah,
that will avoid 80% of men's issues.
Yeah, stay ready so you don't have to get ready.
Yeah, and I mean the other thing is that's tripping men up is not dealing with emotional issues,
bro.
And one of the biggest ones is resentment.
Biggest.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier, and of the early days, you mentioned maybe about, I think it was about disease or habits or things like that around alcohol and whatever. This is what a mentor taught me. He talked to me about making oaths, making an oath to live by. And one of the first oaths that I made was around alcohol. Not any, not ever, no negotiation. So, and of course, you do it a day at a time.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I've done that for 29 years now.
Congratulations.
A day at a time.
Yeah.
Because of an oath, an agreement I made with me and God. And not other. So many oaths that I've made that have directed my life.
It's like raising the intensity. Like it's no longer a should or a could or a maybe. It's a must, right? That becomes a non-negotiable that you live by. Kind of like a personal mission or purpose that guides your daily decisions. And daily is important, right? We can do more in a day than we can do in a week or a year or 10 years, right? Because like the past isn't here, the future is not here. All we have is right now. All we have is today. I could not wake up tomorrow, and all I had was today to do what I needed to do.
Well, a good motivator for me. A man that I was close to, when I was going through those first 5 years, I was about 3 years in, and he was a little bit further down the track than me. I looked up to him, and he drank again and committed suicide. And I remember being at his funeral, and just like, how the heck did this happen? Like, in my heart, I thought he was doing better than I was.
Right.
And I remember thinking, if it can happen to him, it can happen to me. So I remember throwing some dirt over on his coffin, and I made another oath. I made an oath that I was only ever going to do what I loved. Unless my heart was fully engaged, I ain't doing it.
That's good.
Life is too short. As you said, I actually don't even know how long ago. In fact, it's guaranteed you will die. It's just a matter of when. You don't get out of this life alive. But such another oath. We talk about, we've talked about, when we were in Florida the other week, we were talking about, or in the group, about making a decision. And actually that word means to cut off. I'm cutting off the things that aren't helping me, that aren't for me. That's what men do.
Yeah. Yeah.
They step up, they level up.
Say it again for the people in the back, man.
It takes courage.
Yeah.
To be a man.
Absolutely.
To be that leader that you were built to be.
And courage. A lot of people think that courage is the absence of fear. Like I've got through the fear. Now I can be courageous, but it's acting in spite of the fear. Like while the fear is still there, you got to do the thing.
Yeah.
So that's so powerful, man.
Man, yeah, you know, one of the things that I I ended up fighting box for 18 years, right? And I don't miss the training. I don't really miss any of it apart from that walk from the dressing rooms. When you can hear the crowd outside, you're in the dressing rooms and you are freaking out, man. And that walk from the dressing rooms through the crowd to the ring under the spotlights, that's the thing I miss, man.
Wow.
The adrenaline, man. The like, God, get me out of this, man, and I'm never doing it again. Man, that's living.
Yeah.
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 But the fear, every self-doubt, you really get faced with every bit of junk that is in you. Every weakness, everything that's led you astray. And that was a big part of, I mean, even what I do now, I've got to, you know, for doing that fight like a pro, the qualifier was that you'd never had a fight. So imagine if I said to you, you're fighting in 10 weeks in front of up to 1,000 people and you've never had a fight. And people are flying from everywhere to see you. It's like most men, it's their worst nightmare. But the men who did the best were the ones who got it through the rite of passage side of it. Who does Gregory actually need to become on the inside to step through the ropes?
Wow.
Despite of the result.
Yeah. Wow. That's another level of becoming the person.
Well, that's another level of courage, you know, and becoming comfortable with the unknown. That things, this could be the greatest moment of my life, or this could be the worst moment of my life. So I'm going to end up in hospital and not even know what happened in front of all the people.
Right? Man.
All the critics.
Yeah. You were mentioning just that feeling of walking from the dressing room to the stage and through the crowd, and that I started feeling that.
Not the stage, man. The boxing ring, the center. A stage would be fantastic. At that point, BBA often go.
Yeah, you don't get beat up on stage. You get beat up in the ring. I guess I was changing it in my head because I'm like, that's horrifying. Like, I don't.
We weren't having a dance off. Someone's trying to kill me.
They're coming for blood. Yeah, no, I guess I felt it so deeply, I was trying to change it.
Yeah, maybe.
Wow. So it's an incredible story and journey that you're taking us through here. And when did you make that decision to invest? I guess the question is, when is the last time you made a decision to invest solely in your personal growth, like to spend time investing in your personal growth? Because it's not a like one and done. Like you don't personally invest in personal growth once and then you've achieved something. Like you have to keep on going. So when was the last time you did it? When was the first time? Like, I feel like you touched on it a little bit, but I want to go deeper into, just in case there are men out there that are on the fence about investing in themselves, right? What is the importance of that? And what does it look like for you?
Well, I remember, I said, you know, years ago, we're talking 20 odd years ago, I remember doing my first, I suppose, for want of a better word, personal development program from Bob Proctor, where they mailed you out the cassette tapes and what have you in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
And really, that's when I got sober and the boxing career and everything sort of took off. And I remember at that point making another oath. I made an oath because I never learned to read and write at school. I knew too much. I never even made it to age 15 at school. My first job was catching chickens, and my dad it was a favor to get that job. Like I didn't, I was not relying on my education to get me there. Right? But I remember educating in that sort of way. And I remember making an oath that I was going to be a lifelong learner. I realized how I'd neglected learning and raising my standards and my level of knowledge. And so, man, I've just been a continuous learner. That's, I've seen so many men over the years, and I have as well. I'm sure every man does. You grow and then you plateau, then you have to grow again. Where sometimes those plateaus, I've seen men have those plateaus, and then eventually they start going down, and all of a sudden, I've actually had friends over the years say, I'm just going to have maybe 3 or 4 months off of personal development, and all of a sudden it lasts a decade, and they go through a marriage, they go through a business, their kids don't talk to them.
Yeah.
So, man, I'm just going to keep growing and learning. Now, and one of the biggest things, you've met one of my daughters. I've got 5 daughters and 2 sons. I've got 7 kids. And they're all it's not an option. You either grow or you die. That's kind of, I'm not going to obviously kill any of my kids, but that's the options,
It's true. It's true. You're either growing or you're dying. The day you stop learning is the day you start dying.
But I remember, mate, because I did that boxing program up until 2019, and I guess I knew there was something more in me. I knew all that 10 years I did that for was I always felt like it was an apprenticeship to help men. I get so many stories and I remember we put the first book out in 2019, and I thought I'm just going to have a rest. I'm just going to have 3 months. I've been going hard for 10 years, and advance and all that. And I remember in about the 3rd month, there was 4 men. 2 of them were waiting for the next program to start. I didn't know when I was going to start it. Two out of the 4. Anyway, 4 men commit suicide in like 4 weeks. And man, it hurt.
Wow.
I thought I was almost like, God, what is going on? I take my foot off the gas for literally, it felt like a moment, after. And like, what the heck? And man, it hurt me. It rocked me.
Wow.
And it was like, it just took the wind out of my sails,
Yeah, that just took the wind out of me hearing it.
Yeah. And I remember one guy, Stewie, he was really, I knew him, I didn't know it was that, I knew I needed to help him. I just didn't know the importance of it. So I even had him working at my house. I had I did everything I could, and it was a tough time. But you mentioned I made a decision. I've got to do something. And that's when we put that book online, and then men started reaching out. I've read the book, what's next? And I remember thinking, I didn't have anything. So then literally I got a camera and all the stories that I tell throughout the 10 weeks to get men to live above courage, to get them not to care about what anyone thought, to really document that initiation, that validation process, started putting it all in videos and started shooting out to men. And all of a sudden it went from my city to the whole country.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Then it went to New Zealand. Then America, and then we thought the same, I suppose, things were happening with men from those 10 weeks. They just got to keep going. So then we created a 12-month program. We got men 3 years into 12 months. There's so much room for growth, man. And you're really doing yourself a disservice. You're doing your family a disservice. Not to mention the mission and the purpose that God has put in you.
Yeah. When you don't show up.
So man, there's,
Wow.
but I think, and like you've heard this as well, but really around those 4 levels of value, most men are living at the first level. Just the first level is just implementation. Get up in the morning, go to work, come home, go to bed. Like just doing the do, and then of course the next level is like management. So
Yeah.
you're managing other people. You're just really managing yourself, so you look okay. So you look, but there's no heart in it. But then
No.
when we get to that third level where we talk about communication, the amount of people I've heard say men aren't good talkers. It's not true. Men
No.
are amazing speakers
Yeah.
as long as their heart's in it.
That part.
That's it, man. And that's where your purpose, your mission lies, in your heart. But men are disconnected. So, like, for example, you, Greg, you're an author, like you're creating so many other things from that communication place. This, people listening, man, this is where it's at. This is how we can really take that gift, that talent that generally comes from struggle and hardship. I mean, in the DNA of every man is a warrior. We're built for a battle. Don't avoid it. You're doing yourself a disjustice,
Yeah.
But then what we talk about, that 4th level of imagination, man. Most of us, the worst thing you can ever do for a boy is put him in a classroom and tell him to sit there for 6 or 7 hours, So we're built to create from our imagination. I always say to the men in our programs, everything's created twice. First in your mind, then you have an opportunity on the provision that you're working that courage to actually act on what's in your heart and in your mind. And that's where you can have the most impact in your family, your business, wherever you go.
It's so powerful. Have you ever considered the legacy that what you're creating now will leave behind for your children and your children's children and the world as a whole?
Well, mate, I can tell. I'm here now. Obviously, I'm not with the accent. I'm from Australia, but I'm here in Malta, in Gozo. And the reason, I mean, apart from the reason life's an epic adventure, or it's not, I'm choosing adventure. But I moved my family here because my wife, father's from here, and they've got 2 houses here. Okay. One they've been in the family for 120 years. One's been in their family for 160 years. So I wanted to bring my children here and take them to the house that's like 450 years old, right? Because this is the purpose, right? To go to the house, because their grandfather was born in that house. Their grandmother, who lived to 90 and passed away 10 years ago, was born in that house. Like, it's legacy. There's a well in the middle of the house. We all drink from the water. And my wife, Michelle, her grandmother's sister said, I remember when your father used to drink from that water, that well. Like, man, that's a massive driver for me.
That's incredible.
But that's the thing. Even what we're doing now, we're creating something that our children's children will be able to benefit from. So you kids, when you listen to this, leave a comment. I'll be looking from heaven.
Love it. Facts, man. Facts. That's beautiful. Man, so what to the man that's been inspired by this so far, what is the next step that they can take? I'm thinking it's to be a better man 5-day challenge. Like, that is the next logical step. You want to be a better man. You want to get involved with Mr. Gavin Lance Topp and his community that he's built of men that are striving to be better men and be courageous and live from their hearts. I'm all on board with that. So tell us a little bit about this transformative journey and what the challenge entails.
Well, I've made it as simple and as easy as possible. I know what it's like to start at day one. You know,
Yeah.
and the thing is, I say that, but over the years with thousands of men, you know, like I mean, we've sold, you know, over 15,000 of these books. I've got another Man Alive book, which is a 21-day action program. But the 5-day challenge, right? Really, day one, we look at your enemy. Like, what is actually holding you back, taking you out? You know, because not every good thing is a good thing for you. You know, like when I say your enemy, what's holding you? What's keeping you stuck? You know, particularly when we get into day two, we look at what men actually need, not what they want. We all got wants, but what do you actually need? What do you need from other men? What do you need from women? What do you need from yourself? So then by the time you get to day one, day two, you're kind of thinking, hang on a minute, I've been hoodwinked for all these years. Like I didn't realize. Eyes really start to open up. And then we get into day three, we talk about your culture. Because, you know, environment is stronger than willpower.
Wow. Yeah.
So you end up by default, if you're not creating your own culture that supports your mission, by default, you end up in somebody else's.
Yeah.
You know? They say everyone's got an agenda. What men don't like is a hidden agenda.
No.
So when we're with a group of men and we all understand the direction we're going, man, that's how we really benefit each other. You know? And then day four, we really get into your assignment. Like every man longs for a mission, a battle to fight, something to give his all to. It's either that or you're going to operate at average. And average is average of what you really could do. That's what I'm talking about, you know?
Wow. So like operating as a shell of a man instead of all you could be.
Oh man, you know, and sadly, you know, what I've seen doing this for, you know, very long time, a lot of men are doing that and aren't even aware. So, like, I remember a mentor saying to me, it's not about having the right answers, mate. It's about having the right questions.
Okay, man.
Come on. There's a lot of people that are quick to come with good answers, and that's one thing that I suppose obviously I took that on. I'm still talking about it 20 years later, you know, but that's what I endeavor to do. I endeavor not to tell anyone anything. You know, what men have said to me is that, man, you seem to ask the right question at the right time. and that's the, I suppose you know, I've just had a lot of great men go before me, and it's just an honor to be able to do what I do in you know what they went through, so I can do what I do. It's a privilege and a blessing, you know.
It's so good.
And so when men go through that 5-day challenge, man, their eyes are open. They get an energy like that. A lot of men will go, you know what? I feel like I'm 21 again, but I kind of feel a bit like, man, I've got to get this happening. I've got to get this mission that's in me happening.
21 and motivated. What it would be to be 21 and motivated again, baby.
But this is the thing. Over the years, like a lot of people, well, when I say a lot of people, I hear people say, "Oh, you know, you got to be kind of down and out to do to want to become a better man." That's not true. Over the years, I've probably dealt with a lot more men that I refer to as up and out or up and confused, you know, rather than down and out. They're actually they've done their best to look good, to have the cars, the businesses, the yada, 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 but they know deep down, man, there's got to be more to it than this.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to get answers to. Come with those questions that lead you to the next question, and all of a sudden, man, you know, there's a process that we go through, layers, to really find out what is in you, not what your parents or the government or anyone else has told you, but really what's in there.
That's so good, man. Now you got me excited. I'm wanting to sign up for the challenge. So I'm gonna leave that link.
You're in.
I'm in.
You're in.
You will see me on the challenge if you come. So I'm gonna drop that link in the description for you to come in. And if you're watching this live, like comment like what resonated with you the most, because like we can go on and on because this is a hot topic, and I actually want to continue this at a later date. Like come back after the challenge and let's talk about what transpired, right? Because I feel like people need to see it from both angles, like before the challenge and what you noticed about men and some of their testimonies after the challenge. And I don't know, that could be just something that's coming through me right now, but I'm excited because I feel like for a long time I have been searching for what it is to be a man. And you know, you said it right there, is like you have the success, you have the money, the cars, the houses, the outward success. You look good on social media, but on the inside, you're empty. You're hurting. You're scared. You're afraid. You don't know what to do next. You don't know, like everyone's looking to you and you're like, who do I look to? Right? Like, how am I going to maintain this? Are they going to find out I'm not really who I'm projecting to be? And right, you talked about multiple men committing suicide. Like that's tragic. That's a whole legacy cut off.
That's right. Well, not cut off because their kids have got that legacy now. That's in the family forever.
Yeah. I mean, I guess what I meant by a whole legacy cut off is it could have been more.
Oh man, absolutely. Yeah.
Man, thank you so much for sharing your heart for men and your heart for what you're doing and why you're doing it. That just the process of the awareness and waking them up to the lies that they've been living, and then taking them through like a process of getting back to what it is to be a real man and living from that new space. That's powerful. And I think if you're watching this, if you're a man that has resonated with any part of this, or you've dropped a comment here, and there's something that you feel is nudging you to join this challenge like it did me, I think that it'd be in your best interest to click this link and transform for your family, for your community, for your children. If you don't have children yet, for the nieces and nephews and you know, the children around you in community, because we need a world full of men who know who they are, who live from their heart, which is courage, right? We're living from our heart, who live out the purpose that God put inside of them. That's what's missing in the world. And so to tie a pretty bow on this episode, if you don't feel like a real man, it's okay. You're not alone. There are times where I still, even though I'm achieving, I'm accomplishing, I've had something, I still don't feel like a real man. And you know, you're looking at two different people here, one that had a father and actually enjoyed him and loved him, and one that had a father that denied him until the day he died, right? Like it's a different feeling or a different situation, but in the end, we still have to find who we are as a man, independent of the other influences. And I just thank you, Gavin, for coming on and sharing your heart with our audience. And I pray that the people that need to be in this challenge are there, right? The people that are ready, that are serious, not curious about a transformation, show up and they are transformed by what you are bringing to the world. So thank you for coming on. Do you have, I have this question that I like to ask on the podcast. And it's not in the stone yet. It's like, as the spirit flows through me, like, what question do I have for Gavin? To your future self, when you watch this in the future, what is one thing that you want to say to them?
All right, I got it.
You got it. All right, let's go.
I have a dream that every male would know there is a masculine journey to be taken, that every man would pass the test of manhood so he would know that he is enough, that every wife would feel the unconditional love of a husband, that every daughter would know what a real man looks like, and every child would feel the love of a father. My dream is that every man would live a life of adventure so everyone would know that he is enough, that every man would have the courage to fight for what is right and just, that every man would know his purpose is to raise other men up. That's my dream for you. That's my dream for the people, men watching. That's my dream for this world.
Wow,
Did
man.
that answer your question, brother?
Answer my question. Got my eyes sweating. I'm not crying. You're crying. Man, that's powerful. That's powerful. You would think we planned that, but you didn't. That's just who you are. That's incredible.
Well, every man has a dream.
Every man has a dream.
If you don't live that dream, it's not going to happen.
Man, thank you for this. If it helped me this much, I know it's got to be helping the audience 10x. So again, thank you. This has been the most incredible podcast. And I probably say that every podcast, but I'm just in love with God's people and what they have.
Amen.
And when you step in courageously to show up to serve your people, people don't suffer because they know there's someone there that has a dream to help them rise, that has that conviction to help them rise up when there's no one else to help them through that. So thank you. Thank you, Gavin. Wow. All right. I'm going to end the recording right there, man. Okay. We will see y'all in the next video.